Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of the Stand Up Sit Down with me, your boy, John Paul. And today's guest is one that I've always wanted on the show. And he's actually going to be the first stand-up comedian on the Stand Up Sit Down. One of my favorite people in the entire world, writer, producer, actor, comedian extraordinaire, fighter, and an artist and a foodie. One of my favorite people in the entire world, ladies and gentlemen, not just my friend, but my actual brother. Not my actual brother, but my brother, Ron Josol, everybody. Yo.
What's up?
Good to see you, man.
Dancer. You forgot that.
I forgot that. Yes, correct. And dancer. You know what I always wanted to ask you? So I know, as far as comedy goes and being a comedian, you are literally in every possible time zone at like any point in the year, like within days of each other. How do you climatize yourself to the different time zones? Because sometimes you're like 6 hours ahead, and then all of a sudden you're like 4 hours behind. Like, how does you
I think my body already gets used to it, so I don't really, I don't feel it as much anymore. Because when I keep traveling, my body, normally if you go 12 hours difference, your body will be tired during the day. But because I do it so much, I find the energy somewhere. Then like when I did the show with you.
Yes, like you literally got off a plane from LA, landed
And
here.
you've done that. South Africa.
Yeah.
Yeah. So your body just figures out how to do its job, how to survive, how to cook, how to do all that stuff. It's really, and then eventually you just knock out.
Yes, correct. Because the trick that was taught to me, and I don't even know whether it works or not, or if it was just a psychological thing, was a comedian told me to, when you get on the plane, whatever it is, so let's just say we're going ahead 5 hours, to change your watch to whatever time it is where you're going and try to do what you would do. So like if you get on the plane at like 3 in the afternoon and you know it's going to be 8, you know, where you're going.
Do I look like I'm always tired though now?
No, not always.
Oh, okay. Because when you travel this, so you are tired.
Well, your butt. I mean,
But
it takes a toll.
I wonder if I look so much worse than you because I travel more than you.
No, you make it sound like you're.
It could be.
You make it sound like you're time traveling. You're not time traveling.
Time traveling would be really bad for your skin.
You think so?
All those,
Probably no moisture, huh?
yeah, all those universes. Oh man.
So here's one thing that I didn't know until like later on when we got to know, because we literally go like way back. We're talking like, you know, at least close to 30 years now that we
and you know what was weird? I told Norm about this when I was like when I said thank you guys, and I said about you and Russell and this and that. I didn't want to embarrass you or anything like that.
No, I wasn't embarrassed.
Sometimes because John, you're the type of guy that doesn't give yourself any credits. And so I remember going when I did the show, and I was like, this guy, you know, used to be the big dog, and Russell used to be the small dog. I remember we used to go to parties, and then he would say something and be like, shut up, da-da-da-da-da. You don't even know what you're talking about. He was like, and I remember it was that dynamic.
Yeah.
Do you remember that?
I remember this was like way back in the day.
Yeah,
though,
but it's so weird how that nobody knows that. Nobody knows that the dynamic was he kind of looked up to you in some level, and you were just like, whatever this guy.
But back then,
Whatever Indian.
You're stop. You're fool. You're such a jackass.
No, but you would always make fun of him, and then and okay, if you weren't around when he was around, would he be doing as many West Indian or Trini jokes?
I mean, I don't know, and that's not
know?
for me to.
I just think that when you start comedy, if you don't have a friend, you don't start building your own voice. Because your friend allows you to start building your voice. You guys were the only two brown motherfuckers in Toronto doing comedy.
Like literally.
Outside of Kenny and Ronnie, you guys were the only two.
But literally.
And everybody must have hated you.
They did, man.
No, because they hate me now.
They really did, man.
So imagine back then.
It was crazy back then.
No, it must have been the worst feeling in the world. And because you're a unicorn, you don't look, he's 65. Right?
64.
Right? People think you're just as... It's like, you know, The Simpsons, how they never grew up? You know, The Simpsons is his 40th season.
Yeah.
And Bart's still fucking 10.
Correct.
That's how they look at you. They go, this guy has never changed in his sitcom in Yuck Yucks or Toronto Comedy Life. You have not really. Look, in this, all the Simpsons should be dead at this age.
Yeah.
At least 60 years old.
But I also think that's what comedy does. I think comedy is like, you remember,
Makes you immature for the rest of your life.
it makes you immature, but I also think, like you remember in like Star Wars when like Han Solo got frozen in the carbide or whatever it was? I think that's what comedy does. It freezes your age in carbide. So whatever age you start to like thrive. Yeah.
Carbide is what?
Oh, is it carbonite? Whatever.
Carbonite. Yeah.
But
We're just geeking.
it's just this shit.
Yeah.
But whatever age you are where you start thriving in comedy, I think it locks in somehow. Like you're like for the most part, like your spirit and your soul. And I think that's why we don't necessarily age and we will be like Simpsons characters for the rest of our days.
Yeah, but do the Simpsons characters have to update their lingo and their slang?
I think so.
Yeah, and
I think you have to in order to stay relevant.
Because how you speak today, like on stage, I bet the lingo we used back then was, hey, that was wicked.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, like we have to change your
Because
your outfits.
But when it comes to comedy, as far as, and again, when you were talking about like back in the day how I used to be and all that kind of thing, I think I've just evolved. I think I've just evolved as a person, just like you've evolved as a person, which is what I've loved watching the evolution of what you do and who you've become.
But does it ever, like, here, when I look at all these comedians that we started with, and you're young and cool, and all of a sudden you're old, but try to maintain cool. And then all of a sudden you're like Carlin, or that age where Carlin was doing stand-up, and because Eddie didn't really do stand-up after like 30.
No, because he became a huge movie star. Yeah.
Where Carlin and a lot of the comics that stayed doing comedy rather than movies and TV shows, they just wore black and they never cared about the style because it was no longer appropriate for their acts.
But that's what good comedy is. Like good comedy forces you to be honest and without sounding corny, like vulnerable.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And for dudes like, and it's funny, like when you think about Carlin in his earlies, Carlin was like super silly and not corny, but he was like super silly and kind of thing. But as he got older, he was a bitter motherfucker, but funny, because he was talking his truth.
Ethnic comics, I know we haven't been around as long as they have been, but if you look at the older generation that are still doing it, they're ethnic. They're still wearing the suits. They're not really just wearing pure black like Carlin.
No. But I just think as ethnic comics, we've never been the beatnik kind of, hey man. We've always tried. I think just depending upon the community we come out of, we've always been stylish. And when I think about the two of us, like we both heavily represent our culture. Yeah. Like you heavily represent the Filipino culture.
Here's the weird part now. The younger and new generation of Filipinos are coming out, I see, they're now the guys that they still dress nice, but there's another Filipino comedian that are more alty nerdy, and they don't dress the same. Like what's cool to them is just what's the name of that brand that Walmart carries? Or sorry,
Joe?
No, not Joe. It's
Fresh? No.
Not Fresh. It's not Walmart. It's the big one. It's Sam's Club and
TJ Maxx? Not TJ Maxx.
What's the other one?
There's like Winners. You talking about like those kind of stores?
You need a card,
like Costco?
Yeah, Costco.
Like Kirkland type.
Kirkland.
Yeah.
So I see these young guys wearing Kirkland T-shirts.
But here's the thing too,
and that's more simple.
But the way us being representing our culture and that the generation after us and after that doesn't. The reason I don't think it's necessarily the same is because we are like direct descendants of actual immigrants.
Yeah.
And a lot of the guys, the younger guys, whether it be Filipino comedians or Trini comedians or whatever,
up.
No, they only know here. We know, Philippines. I know Trinidad and Tobago. Some people know Jamaica, that kind of, because our parents actually still have the accent. So their parents of the younger generation
don't have one.
Sound like this,
and
speak like this. They don't necessarily cook the traditional foods or do the traditional stuff, but we come from actual, like, my parents are like, all right, Saturday is soup. We're going to eat soup
Do you
today
think
and clean.
ethnic, our parents or ethnic people that came here in the 60s and 70s, just they dressed they dressed a little bit more cooler than the average person? Like if I look at the old pictures of my parents,
Oh, man, it's so stylish.
I'm
dude.
like, what?
Dude, they're
And
like,
I-
it's
I
like a
would
fashion lookbook.
yeah, and I
bro.
would see like old white people that are same age walking behind them, not wearing as crazy shit they're wearing.
Yeah.
So I'm like, you ever go to Dominican Republic, or like any of the? Sometimes we do the comedy will bring us to different resorts,
Mhm.
and then you'll see the resorts, and it's really nice, and then you'll go to the actual city where it's not as nice, and then all their telephone wires are touching the ground, right? And they're wearing dress shoes while they're doing construction.
Dude, they wear dress shoes when they're playing soccer.
Yeah. And I'm just like, it doesn't matter where you put an ethnic person, or they will dress up, even in construction. It almost seems like they have to dress up even more than the average white person or black person lives in North America to show them, hey, this is money.
But that's the perception that sometimes they try to create in the old country.
Do you think we have that as a first generation?
I think so.
It's because my
I still try to
nephews
look
are
stylish.
not like that.
I still try to look stylish.
Yeah, and my nephews don't. They are, but they don't. We have a little bit more bling on us.
And it's just different. It's
Yeah.
just a different version. You know what I mean? Like I still think, not that we hold on to like an old style, because I don't want to make it seem like we're out of style. I just think we just have a different version of.
What was your number one outfit when you were like in your teens? I'll tell you what mine is right
you
now.
you don't even want to know, man.
Okay, first of all, Docs,
Yeah.
right?
Mine were so I bought police. I don't know if you remember, they
Police
had police
boots.
boots.
Yes,
And they
I
had the
remember
steel
that.
toe.
I bought those with the police jacket.
I bought that in. I used to go shopping in Kensington.
Oh wow!
Yeah,
We go there.
yeah.
So we go to textiles or Kensington to get those police boots. My
Correct.
brother had that.
I remember.
And we shine them.
Correct.
Right.
I remember.
And then after we'd have tight like.
Dude, do
tight-
you remember
with
jodhpurs?
pins. Jodhpurs from Club Monaco.
So you'd go to Mark's Work Warehouse and you
Yeah.
get the painter's
Yeah.
pants, and you would pin it to here. So
Right here.
and which was shitty for us because we have giant
Giant
calves. So you couldn't
Yeah,
get
but the
them
jodhpurs
off.
were the coolest.
The jodhpurs, oh yeah, man,
And then
riding
we-
pants.
and then
what
we
the
had
fuck?
a-
We had no business wearing riding pants.
I had a vest, a white shirt under. Have a nice day.
Correct.
Right, and I had a
Correct.
backwards baseball cap.
Like when I think about how I dress, like my parents laugh because I went through like insane stages of like dressing like preppy and shit like that, like fucking tree torns and bass weegens, like penny loafers and shit like that, you know.
Tree tours.
Yeah, and like roots
Beaver
roots
canoe?
sweaters, beaver canoe. Yeah,
You're like
yeah.
a hot white girl.
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
I was
Tree
like a hot
tours.
wife because my pussy stank. It was great. But-
Those are, and then here's the for your hair. What was the best haircut you ever had in your life? So this shit is so much easier to deal with now. I love being bald.
I own my baldness just because my favorite hairstyle, dare I say,
You know when
I
you
had-
hold on to the comb over, people hold on. You held on to, you know what?
I held on to the Caesar forever.
You held on
You'd
to Caesar?
You comb that shit forward.
I know some people who held on to the braids and they were balding already, like Lennox Lewis.
Yeah, no, I.
Lennox Lewis was holding on to
horrible.
dreads while he was balding.
Yeah, it was like
And there was like
it's like
four-
four dreads, Yeah,
four
it's-
strings.
It's horrible.
Yeah, it looked like
horrible.
an outline of a dread.
You're so stupid. My favorite one was when I had long hair and I used to be able to. I used to try to braid it like Allen Iverson and shit like that.
Oh shit!
Yeah.
Were you able to do the braids?
Yeah, man. I used to have this one girl that she lived in Scarborough, man. She shout out. I used to go on Saturdays and she would just like and she was like an artist with that shit. Like anyway, she's like, how do you want it? And I was like, you do what you do. And she would like do designs like lightning and square and box it. Like she was fucking like she was so dope. Crystal. I
Hair
remember
is
Crystal.
so for the youth, dude.
Yeah.
It's like I could never put that much time and effort on my head anymore. Like I used to do the hairspray, the
Yeah.
spritz, and then the hair dryer, the Bruno Mars pompadour hair.
Correct.
You know how long it took me to do that every day?
Correct.
And it stayed that way until 4 p.m.
Yeah.
And that you
Because
come
there's so much fucking chemicals in your goddamn hair.
dude, and that's what probably got most of me and my friends bald.
But luckily for me, I always loved hats. Like ever since I was little, I used to wear caps all the time. Like I
Right.
loved like baseball caps and hats. I used to have like this weird Calvary hat, and that was like one of those old school U.S. Civil War hats that I thought was cool. And one of my favorite hats was remember Jughead from
Yeah.
Archie Comics? So it was like a black cap and it had like these little crown points that looked like Jughead, and that was probably my all-time.
Where his eyes would go through them. Is that the one?
No, that's Dumb Donald from Fat Albert.
Oh yeah, he had that looked like he looked like
Jughead had like a crown almost.
it almost looked like Juggernaut's helmet.
Yeah.
He came over. And
He was like the
eyes-
ghetto juggernaut.
Yeah, ghetto Juggernaut.
He was like the nigga knot.
So stupid.
But
What the fuck?
but it's like my favorite. But that was like my favorite hat, and I think I think the hats is what also contributed to me losing my hair. But I still wear hats all the time.
You actually caught me laughing at John Paul for real, because that's so stupid. Your humor is so childish and so stupid. Oh, how come your real humor is so? Our real humor is really ridiculous.
Our real humor is really ridiculous because that's when that's when we're most comfortable. Because when you're the best comedy is those that you're comfortable around. But when you're always in, again, this is just my theory on this shit. When you're always in front of like strangers on different nights, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You have to like reintroduce yourself. It's almost like coming out of a coma.
Yeah.
Every fucking night. Hi, who are you? This is who I am.
I hate
and
that.
then after the show is done, you.
Yeah.
Then you wake up. Hi, here's who I am.
Yeah, and you have like 2 minutes to make them like you right away.
Literally.
Oh god,
It's like doing an elevator pitch every fucking night.
I was thinking about like all different crazy different friends of ours that are different genres of entertainment, and I was thinking of all the magicians that we know that became magicians. When we were inspired to do comedy, it was probably when we were 8 to 10 through Eddie Murphy.
Correct.
Now these magicians were inspired by Doug Henning in the 80s. While they were 3 or 4, and now they're in their 40s, and now they're looking back going, why did I even listen to that voice? Because you don't listen to a 3 or 4-year-old.
No.
You might as well say, I want to be a monster truck.
Yeah.
Because
some people do, though.
But we're still listening to that fucking that kid's voice that says we can do comedy, but it's still more lucrative. But it still works. It's not like...
But I
you
honestly
can't
think we
find
found
gigs.
It's not even
Magicians sometimes cannot find gigs. Like one time I asked Justin, I was like, "So what happens when you don't?" Because they have an agency, and it starts. The first is like the highest level of your gigs would be like not even a cruise; it'd be a library.
You're so dumb.
No, I'm serious. Like he goes, "So what's a good gig?" Oh man, like a $300, $500 gig, like for magicians, sweet man, like that's a high level paying gig. I didn't know that because that's feature work.
Yeah,
That's middle money.
Yeah, correct.
He's like, no, that's $500 for the weekend. You do 2-3 shows for the kids in the library. I go, can I watch this? And it was for kids from 2 to 10.
Yeah, how do you get them to listen though?
Dude, not only were they listening, they gave him a standing ovation. Because remember, you're a child when you decide to be a magician, so you remember the happiness and that crazy feeling when you
The magic.
Yeah. But now you're 40, so you obviously know it's not there. There's no more nostalgia, but it's still there for the kids, and you know the kids feel this, but you know you do not feel this no more.
Correct.
You're like, fuck, I hate this shit, stupid kids. We don't feel that.
We don't feel that because
we're not playing for children.
Not even just that. Like what I love about comedy is it can be cathartic and you can work out anything. Like you can do comedy when you're happy, you could do comedy when you're angry, you could do a thing. You can work out like a breakup, you can work out being depressed, you could work out being happy, you could work out changing.
Magic, you can't do that.
No, you just got to stick to the trick.
Ugh.
You know what I mean? And again, no disrespect to any magicians out there, but
it's so hard to be a magician if you think about it, because you could make $250,000 a year in comedy and be a no-name comic.
Yeah.
Any cruise comic makes $3,000 a week. $3,000 a week. So you're talking about a minimum of 10 to 12 grand.
So you're looking at 12 to 15 grand a month.
month.
You know what I mean? So you're looking at close to, 150,
Magicians
close to 200
do
a year.
not get those opportunities. It's either you're fucking Copperfield or you're Justin Rivera. There's no there's no in between.
Such an asshole.
There's a first gear and a sixth gear, and that's it. And a reverse and kill yourself.
Yeah.
Just smash your car.
Just driving over the cliff.
Just kill yourself. I remember this heckler in Oakland. Justin was just bombing, and this black dude just was like, "Yo, homie," and he's like trying to fix his box of matches. He's like, "Yo, just kill yourself, man. End this shit. End your life, bro." And everybody started laughing because it was just like, "You suck so bad. Just end your life."
You know what the crazy part about that is? As we're talking about like magic and comedy, comedy was the heckle that fucking made everybody. That made it, you know what I mean? The heckle was the comedy.
Yeah.
Like, just kill yourself, and you said everybody fucking laughed.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the thing about comedy is why I still enjoy it is we can live in the moment. So even though you have like an act prepared,
Yeah.
you can fucking like literally
act.
throw all that shit out. But I would
Yeah.
think as something as a magician, you can't just be like, fuck these cards, and you throw the cards on the ground.
Hilarious.
I'm gonna make some shit up. Like
You start riffing.
yeah,
Hey,
just
let's
trying to
make-
get rid of
let's
all
start-
your curses. Fuck this.
You can't riff.
2 more minutes. Hang on. You can't do that shit.
I remember some magicians were learning how to do stand-up, so they had to so they had 5 minutes, right? So they got really good in 5. And I remember they would just imagine a guy just doing 5 minutes on like spirits or open mic and they're just killing, and all of a sudden they vanish. Because they go, well, they couldn't even throw a joke, a trick in there.
Yeah.
But because you're so used to the comedy, you don't even know they're magicians. And then at the end, they just do this weird fucking thing,
Like, what the fuck just happened?
yeah. And I'm like, and it was like laugh and everybody was like shocked, and they're like, yeah, don't do that. Don't just fucking disappear
Yeah.
at the end of your stand up. You can't. You have to actually say goodbye. It was so weird. We're doing magic in the hood in South Sac. I remember Justin brought me there, and it was like the hardest. It was like cholo.
But dude, I remember you took me to yeah, shit. Wasn't it Sacramento?
Yeah,
You
yeah.
took me to the fucking
Imagine doing comedy. Imagine doing magic on that crowd.
No.
Because I brought.
And you didn't even tell me.
No, because if I told you, I didn't want you to get in your head. The second show, I didn't know it was that bad until they're like, there was a fight.
Dude, you left. So we went to
I think I
do.
killed Coke Zero.
So in case anyone was wondering, we did a show at this bar somewhere in Sacramento.
In
What
South
was it?
Sac.
In South Sacramento. And you left to go get a pop or some shit at
Yeah.
like the store, the corner store, and then came back. But when you were gone, there was a dude at the bar who wouldn't leave because he was hassling one of the fucking waitresses, and 2 dudes in like fucking cowboy boots, and a dude had like like a knife here, a knife in his boot, and a knife, and they had to wrestle this dude out. And the funniest part is, again, this is just that's why I love the U.S. sometimes, man. And when the guy left, the guy was like, "Yeah, man, I didn't want to pull my knife out because I'm still on parole." Like it was, I'm like, this is supposed to be a comedy show. Why do you have 3 knives? So
It's like, and going there, it's
scary as fuck,
It's scary too
it's
because
scary as shit, dude.
you'll be driving to the gig on any highway or freeway in the U.S. and you'll see something like, "You need a lawyer." Like that's the ads you see. You'll be driving like
Bail bonds.
Yeah, bail bonds. Love Jesus. Do you love Jesus? Yeah. But it's always like do you need a lawyer? You got in an accident? Do you need to sue somebody?
Yeah.
You got to make some money. It's like everything there has to do with crime. In fact, most of my friends in the U.S. are so shocked when they go, "So when was that last time you were arrested?" I go, "I've never been arrested." They're like, they all turn their heads like, "What?" I go, "What do you mean?" He's like Michael Q.
Mm-hmm.
He grew up a rich kid.
Q's been arrested?
Yeah.
Even Q?
Yeah, because he got drunk at a party and then he surfed what he did, he took the Coke machine and he used it as a surfboard down
To
the
go
street.
downstairs?
Went down the street.
You gotta be kidding me.
No, but like you're wild young American kids.
Yeah.
And they all were laughing in jail. And I'm just like, my parents would beat the shit out of me.
The one thing I remember my dad, even to this day, that would say to me is, again, being an immigrant dad from Trinidad, to be like, hey, if you ever get arrested by the police, don't call my house. Don't call my house to come and pick you up.
Yeah.
And
I was my dad, same shit.
Yeah,
My dad goes, if you ever get arrested, don't bother coming home.
Yeah.
Because I would kill you.
Yeah,
I remember going,
yeah.
okay, I'm not going to get arrested because I don't want to die.
Yeah, and that's always been in the back of my head.
Yeah, but most of my American friends, they're like, no, we've got arrested. And I go, what? Because you're dealing drugs, breaking into it. It's like, no, just partying.
No, man.
It's like wild parties where you rape a girl or two. Like those guys do that.
Such an idiot. You're so dumb. So you, because again, to kind of get back to comedy, what I always find interesting about you is you literally are an international comedian. Like, we're talking like every possible continent, every possible country you've done, from Asia to Australia to South Africa to America to Canada to up north, down south, all that kind of good shit. So since you've been traveling around the world, how has international, because before, comedians used to mostly just be like white dudes and shit like that. And then now that you go to all these other countries, there's like Filipino comedians and Malaysian comedians and Singapore comedians. How has that changed over the few decades now that you travel?
Here's the weird part. Because overseas is changing so much, and Kings used to do this back in the Elizabethan times, where they used to get all these different, this sounds so terrible, but they used to go to different parts of the world and bring different animals down to show all the people from London. So they had, within the castles, if you go to one of the oldest castles in London that's still operating today, they go, the Kings used to go away for a couple months and go to Asia and Africa and come back with all these different animals and elephants. I'm not even joking. I feel Comedy Cellar and the Factory and all the store do that now. They go around different countries and they go, look at that. There's a Malaysian comic that's killing in this jungle of like 200 people. And then they bring them and they
bring them to like New York
and then so
shit.
my friend Jason was one of those. He was a captured orangutan.
I really hate you sometimes.
He's a Chinese guy, but if he was a primate, he'd be an orangutan. If I was a primate, I'd probably be like, I'm a gorilla or some shit. So silverback, So we got this Chinese orangutan, and I remember walking down the cellar, and then I hear Godfrey or whoever was like, "Hey, Ron, man, this guy's from Malaysia. You know this guy from Malaysia?" I'm like, "Jason," and he's like, "And the motherfucker took this and he's destroying." He was like, "Cause the 2 towers we have in Singapore and then all this shit," and he was just destroying. And then the MC goes, "Wasn't that amazing? We have comedy from all around the world." I'm like, "Yeah, captured, right, and dragged to." If you go any of the top comedy clubs in America now, you will see a person from Paris, a person from Africa, a person from Malaysia, a person from Tibet now. It's insane.
Yeah.
And in the Philippines, it's no different. The comedy clubs in the Philippines have gotten so big where international comedians go through Asia will go through the Philippines, and you're like, "Where are you from?" It's like, "Oh, I'm from Germany. I'm one of the biggest comics in Germany," and they're in the Philippines doing their own show. So it's now international. The world's international. It's no longer just, I went to this country. No, they're going to all the other countries too now. So the world's gotten so small.
It's gotten smaller.
It's crazy. It's like, when when I started, the closest thing to ethnic comedy or comedy overseas was the Nubian show.
Correct.
Because the Nubian show wasn't just for black comedians; it was for ethnic comedians or comedians that weren't part of the mainstream white,
And for anyone who
comic club.
and anybody listening who doesn't know what the Nubian show, it was. I think this is what the 20. This year will
30
probably be
years, even longer.
I think it'll be like 26 years.
It has to be longer because I started 30 years ago, and when I started comedy, the Nubian show was already happening.
Okay, so let's say 30 years ago. It was started by someone considered the godfather of Canadian comedy,
For sure,
Kenny
he is.
Robinson,
Yeah.
who is a legend in the game and who I think changed the landscape of Canadian comedy forever. And he put on in what was it, like 1996, 1995, 1996, a show the last Sunday of every month called the Nubian Disciples of Prior All Black Comedy Show.
Do you remember the original one?
I went to the first show.
Who's on the lineup?
The first show was Russell Peters.
As the headliner?
I think Russell might have closed. I can't remember who closed, but it was Russell. It was Marlon Brand. It was Papa Ronnie Man.
Yeah.
Kenny. And I can't remember who else. Maybe Tarandella might have been on the show, but I can't remember who else was on the show.
Simon Carter.
I can't remember.
Yeah.
But the only people I remember are Ronnie, Russell, Marlon, Kenny, for sure.
I saw the video of that.
So here's the funny thing. What had happened was I was working in a mall, and again, Russell and I knew each other since we were
Aldo.
no,
Aldo? Peekaboo.
up in Markham, Joggers. It was called Joggers,
okay.
of all fucking places. And he happened to be walking through the mall, and he's like, "Yo, what?" Because this is before the time of like flip phones and cell phones and shit like that.
Silk shirt times.
Correct. And of course I was wearing dress shoes. No, I wasn't wearing dress shoes. And he was like, "Yo, Kenny Robinson is starting up this show." So he invited me to come down to the show, and I went down to check
To watch.
Not
to be on it.
well, because the lineup was already put together and shit like that. But he's like, "I think you should come down."
Shit,
He's like, "I
that's
think you should
crazy.
come and meet Kenny." And I wasn't doing comedy at the time, really, at that point.
You did do it once or twice.
I had
right?
done it before, but then I had kind of like trying to go to school and shit. And then
So you didn't even know Kenny.
no, I knew who Kenny was,
Right.
but I didn't know Kenny.
Right.
And then he's like, "I want to introduce you to Kenny." And then I went down to the show, and it changed my life forever, man. Because it was like,
Crazy.
"Yo, how do I not?" Because this was back at the time when like Def Jam was like blowing up and shit like that, right? So Def Jam was huge with like Martin Lawrence and Russell.
See, and I found my own version of that in the States. So I remember
like the Latino shows.
No, because there was Asian shows in the States that because there was nothing in Canada. There was not enough Asian comics or Asians to go that went out to comedy clubs. And so, Kenny would be like, "Hey, come down to Newbie Show, come in every month." And you guys would be like, and then when I started going to the States, I would do shows that was pure Asian.
Yeah.
It was like all these, obviously Joe Coy was still young then, and Margaret Cho, but I was in a lineup of all Asians
That's crazy.
and
to me, man.
killing how we would kill in the Nubian show.
That's crazy. To me.
And then I stopped doing the Nubian show because it wasn't for it. Not that I couldn't do it or do well at it. I just didn't feel that what you felt because I got that from
You got that somewhere else.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
So they'd be like, "How come you don't want to play new?" I still don't want to play the Nubian show. It's like I get this is something nobody knows what the fuck I feel.
Yeah.
Because there was no Keith yet, no Norm.
Yeah.
There was no Asians.
Yeah.
Maybe, and
You were literally the only one.
and Welby Santos. So Welby and I would go to the States together and do Asian shows. We were in Asian festivals. And they'd be like, "Here's the clean version of the nice guy, and here's the evil version of." But he wouldn't do well because he wasn't as seasoned as me.
Yeah.
Even though we're still 10 years in, 8 years in, he wasn't working every weekend like how I was.
Because one of the most surprising things for me, like when you were like, "Hey, let's go do San Fran and Sacramento and shit," and you took me like San Francisco to do shows. What I was most amazed by, like I couldn't believe how big, not the Asian population, but like even how big the Filipinos were, like in San Francisco. There was like a Filipino mall and like a Filipino city, and a Filipino casino.
Casino we ate there.
Dude,
even,
that was so
even
fucking
in
dope.
Cobb's and in San Francisco, in Sacramento, Punchline, pure Filipino audiences.
Dude, like
You know?
full on just Filipinos. Like,
Yeah,
and
that's when I found my. I won't even say my voice or calling. I found a crowd that every second I spoke about being Filipino, they fucking they needed more.
yeah.
So it was kind of like how you guys found. It's like, remember that time we did that show in Calgary or Edmonton? It was me, you, Arthur Simi, and Dave Merhej, and we did a West Indian comedy show.
Mm-hmm.
And I had to follow you, and I remember going, "Why the fuck am I going after you? This is not a Filipino show. This is a West Indian show." And then I remember going, "See, look how hard you're killing." And then it took me a long time to get them after that. And then I think Arthur closed. But I was like, if you don't have this, a lot of people don't, a lot of comedians don't know. Because if you start in the ranks of comedy, you go through the comic club circuit,
Correct.
and you do what the scene does.
Correct.
But when you have an ethnic side,
Yeah.
that they go, "Hey,
It's like
perform for us," and
it's
you're
almost
like,
like a secret club.
yeah, you're like, "All right, hold on, okay, I'll go here for a sec," and you're like, "Whoa, you guys really love what I'm saying." Is
Yeah.
because we don't have anybody to talk about this to.
But it's true because it's when you don't have people that can relate to you, you have to over-explain shit, and if you over-explain it, then you lose the true essence of what it is. It's kind of like going to a restaurant. Like if you don't go to a traditional, I don't care what it is, whether it's Italian or Greek or Jamaican or Filipino or Chinese, whatever. If you don't go to the authentic ones, the ones for just mass consumption are usually watered down,
Right,
and less seasoning.
and we see that in ethnic comics that are new. So because we've been doing it for a long time, we actually judge ethnic comedians with a higher standard. And when we watch, we hate the cheap laughs that ethnic comics do too. As much as the average comic doesn't like when ethnic comics use their ethnicity and their race card just to get a laugh, we are like that too. We want it to be as good and as authentic as you can make it.
Yeah, if you're going to use the race card, use it fully. Don't just. I'm just gonna do this and this
low-hanging
and like you
fruit,
said, yeah, the low hanging
you
fruit
know?
when it comes to this. But I think that's what took. I don't know how it was for you, but it took me a long time to become 100% comfortable in because we have to do, and we're pretty much mainstream comics now. You know what I mean? Like we have to be mainstream.
Remember Higher Learning?
Yes.
So do you remember that part where they're
Higher Learning for all those young people out there is a movie with there was Omar Epps and Ice Cube.
Ice Cube and I think who was the the guy he had a Chinese accent. Oh no, a West Indian accent.
Yeah. Wasn't it?
Was it Morpheus?
Oh, you talking about Fishburne?
Oh, Fishburne was in it.
Yeah,
right?
yeah, Lawrence Fishburne. Yeah.
Was he in it? He had an accent, right?
He was like the professor. Or
Yeah.
Some shit. Yeah.
So it was an old movie about school shootings.
Yeah.
A very early movie and really good actor. What's his name? David Davenport or Rappaport?
Michael Rappaport.
What a dope dude! He's dope.
Yeah.
He's so good.
He's nuts. Though.
Yeah, he's nuts. But in the movie, he really depicted and going to college and doing comedy in college, the black ethnic version of hanging out with, and then the white people. There was a separation in how you hung out. And I remember watching that scene going, oh yeah, we smoke weed and we hang out and we talk about philosophy. And then, but we also do that side because comics are brought to both worlds.
Yeah.
So we're also bringing to the white world and the black world and the Asian world. And so when you saw this, you're like, wait, comics actually goes to both sides because it shows how each race parties differently. And we're like, here's the biggest difference. When you're an ethnic comic, you have to know both sides.
So do you feel like a connector? Do you feel like someone who connects
Yeah,
sides?
I have to. You know, code switching.
Yes.
That's what we are born to learn in Canada.
What's your take on code switching?
Code
Do
switching?
you see it as a bad thing, or do you see it as a
No, because I do it when okay, look, I'll be in a family party and I'm making my cousins laugh. Then my Lolas, the older women, are like, "What did you say?" And I'm like, "Okay, I have to translate to an old Filipino woman in English." So I have to code switch I'm adding a bit of an accent now, and instead of saying something totally dirty, I'll lighten it up.
yeah?
Instead of the punchline is fist fucking a nun, I'll say, and then he put baby powder on and smushed it in. Like, you just have to change it a bit. I'm just saying, I had to learn how to speak to older Filipino people in a different way because they don't understand English the way I present it to at school. So, for an example, when Justin and I were in the Philippines and we're ordering food, the lady bought the wrong dish. And she's like, "Oh, you asked for this one?" And he was like, "Oh, no, man. No, I meant this." "Oh, okay. My bad." "My what?" "My bad." "What's bad?" I go, why are you talking slang here?
Yeah.
It's like, no, I want to teach them slang. So how are you going to teach them my bad? I don't know. I'm just going to teach them how my bad is the same thing as sorry. And I'm like, you know how confused she is right now?
Yeah.
Because you have to use code switching here.
Because she's also probably trying to process English when she probably speaks whatever.
Yeah,
it is,
like
whether it's
remember
Tagalog
Dominican
or whatever. Yeah.
So I remember where there was a gig that Yuck Yucks had where you go to the Dominican Republic and you do 2 shows or 3 shows in Jakarta and 3 shows in Jactar or whatever. And I remember I was
Puerto Plata.
Puerto Plata, and I remember there was a guy from Texas there in the front with me, and he was talking to one of the guys that were working at the front desk, and he was like, "So you work here full time with the hotel?" And he's like, "Yes. I have 2 jobs. 2 jobs." He's like, "What's your second job?" "I am a farmer. During the day, I make maize, corn." "Oh, you a corn farmer?" He's like, "Yes, maize. I'm a corn farmer too." "Oh, you farm corn?" "Yeah, I know the ropes." "¿Qué?" "I know the ropes of corn farming." "Know the rope?" "El nuevo du rope." And I'm like, why are you trying to explain and define a slang to this guy?
Yeah.
And I'm like, code switch, man.
Yeah.
Just go farm, maize. Oh, yeah. I know how to farm good.
Yeah.
Like, do that.
Keep it simple.
Yeah, I know farm very good.
Keep it simple.
20 years farm. There. I know El Nuevo du Rope. Look how far that is.
Yeah.
So a lot of people don't understand. You can't teach slang, and you have to code switch.
And you can't. And the thing about slang too is slang is usually indigenous to
Where you're at,
you're
yeah.
at, unless like now because of social media, and access to the internet, that a slang goes viral.
Yeah.
You know what I mean, but before those days, it literally was contained to where the fuck you were from.
Yeah, like, do you think that if the internet was around, Jaden Smith or Will Smith's daughter would say ting?
No.
She says ting in all her music,
Yeah.
and that's learned from Toronto. That's a patois.
Yeah.
And that's because the internet allowed Toronto's slang to start being part of other people's culture.
Even Migos has that song. Like, in Canada, I see a lot of things. Like,
Yeah.
that's something.
I heard that in my apartment, even some 2016 to 20, right before the pandemic. I went a new place, and I remember people started talking patois.
Yeah.
It was all kids.
Yeah.
And they're learning it from the young artists.
Yep.
And that's where we're kind of like in that weird Jake Paul era, where it's a fantasy that they've created, a world of fantasy they created that's no longer it's not about being in the ranks of high art or technique or abilities or talent. It's let's make this fantasy fight thing happening where you can fight old people, young people that are new YouTubers. That is more popular than the top ranked boxers or fighters today.
Because that's what it unfortunately and fortunately is trying to find the balance between the two. But unfortunately, numbers have trumped like actually having to have a proper skill or to put in a kind of commitment. Like when you think of like some of the greatest boxers of all time, like the amount of hours and training that they'll
never make as much as Jake Paul.
Never.
They'll never even come close.
Because it all boils down to social media followers and now because corporate entities and corporations don't give a shit, all they give a shit about is advertising and money. They don't give a fuck whether, so and so is skilled or so and so is thing. They're just like, oh shit, this generates numbers and numbers generate money and money generates bonuses and bonuses means I can have a side ting and a fucking villa in south of France.
Look at all the guys that are coming up right now. Every one of them, especially from Toronto, Nima and what's the name? Phil's.
Hassan.
Yeah.
Fucking love Hassan.
Those guys are changing comedy in Canada. And I would have, if someone told me a black Muslim and a Persian was going to change the face of Toronto comedy scene.
But I think it's beautiful for the simple fact, what I love about those two in particular is the fact that it's not just about the numbers for them.
No.
They figured out a way to, like I said, bridge the gap. And so if this is numbers and this is comedy skills, they figured out a way to make it all work. Like they understand how that works.
Right.
Like when you go to see Hassan's a fucking funny, talented dude.
100%.
He's just not a dude who goes up and, hey, I'm just going to say stupid shit. He's figured out a way to finesse social media. And Nima's, I don't know too many guys who have put in as much work and continue to put in as much work.
And this is what I've 100% seen just because we've been doing it for fucking ever. We were sold on the concept of show business, and they not even were sold. Their new concept of show business is business show.
Yes.
They're now like, you want to start comedy, you want to start sketch, you want to be an actor, you want to be a bodybuilder, you want to do anything on social media, make sure your business starts first with the people coming out to see you. Because it starts with a single ticket to your show, a single view to your video. And that's how it starts. And then the money comes after. And before it was work your ass off, get really good at what you do in your art and technique, and then work will come. No.
Yeah. Well,
it doesn't come no more.
The process has changed. Like even my boy Junior Lee from Trinidad, who's huge social media sensation and a comedian. I remember asking him because he's social media wise, he's blown up in the last, let's say, even 2 to 3 years. But he said that he started making the videos to generate tickets and interest for people to come see him do comedy.
Right.
So by doing it, he figured out, oh, I just got to do this, and while I do this, I can still be good at comedy.
Right.
So I think, like you said, it's business show, whereas for us it was show business.
Yeah, and even with Russell, man, like he was just doing show, and all of a sudden he blew up online. And even with Clayton, their sales pitch to any company and any venue was, you don't have to advertise. We will do the work. You pay us a flat rate, $250,000, $1 million, right? You make whatever you want to make after. So when he first went to Kuala Lumpur and went to Singapore, I remember the two guys over there never had anybody as big as Russell come in.
Is this the story where everything happened, like the YouTube shit?
No, this is
because you were there for that, right?
Yeah, I was there for that. But the one after that was probably 2010. Where he sold 18,000 tickets in Thailand and 20,000 in Kuala Lumpur and 20,000 in Singapore. Those guys made probably $500,000 each because Russell's cap was 250, where they made over $1 million.
So instead of paying him money,
so Russell was like this. Clayton was just like, here, pay us $250,000. Give us full first class tickets. give us these hotels, and whatever you make over that, keep. They made $1.5 million fucking dollars.
Not thinking that they would have made.
Because Russell and Clayton told me they didn't know they would sell that much.
Yeah.
And that was their first time in Kuala Lumpur and in Singapore. Where they're like, we just want $250,000. We fucking got these motherfuckers. No, those guys made $1.5 million.
Yeah, because growing up, that was a lot. That was a lot. It's still a lot of money, but growing up, you think, hey, I'm gonna call out a ridiculous number.
Yeah,
like and then they, we got
but they
it.
also didn't know they were that big.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. But
So
that's,
imagine
hindsight's always 20/20.
And then
right?
from that point, they go for Live Nation, so they don't even fuck with those smaller promoter guys. But imagine your whole goal in life as a promoter is to catch the rising star before it's too late. Yeah. And when you get them, like the Matt Rife or whoever, and they give you that deal that you'll never get again.
Yeah.
Because guess what? The year after, 50%.
Yeah.
So you're gonna make $2
and then you get less, and then you get less, and then you hope to catch the next lightning in a bottle,
and go, hey man, it's the fucked up part was even that 2 years ago when my thing went viral, everybody that I remember capitalized on it except when I tried to put my own shows together. Yeah. When I put my own shows together, I get 100. When other people did it, they got 1,000, 1,500. And that's what I had to deal with, and I'm still dealing with today. Because you got to keep your IG people interested. Here's an example. I tested not posting for 2 weeks, and I lost 2,000 followers. And so I went back 5 days a week, and it went back to a certain amount. I'm like, wow. And just Googling and talking to people, your IG, your Instagram is a 1 minute TV show that people wake up and watch and go to sleep and watch.
Yeah.
It's only 1 minute.
Yeah.
But like a TV show, when you go and wait and it's not there, there's the next show you're going to watch.
Correct.
So what happened was after 2 weeks, they're like, I guess Ron's done. And they went, fuck this dude. And they went, and I went, holy, it happens that
It's
fast.
that fickle, man.
It's that fucking fickle.
But again, when you think about how many users there are on everything, and there's always a new platform, of thing. Like it's gone from Twitter to X to Threads to,
it's too overwhelming.
So it's a lot. But again, back to like Nima and the Hassans, they've figured out what their their social media TV show looks like, and they stick to their TV show, and they keep providing the and even the Junior Lees and the Certified Samsons and guys like that that I know, they just keep providing this TV show for people to watch.
And it's more than enough to make you stop doing it.
Dude, I would imagine the burnout would be crazy, dude.
I mean, I could feel it burnout for myself. So what I'm like, okay, I'm 50, so you literally have 25 years left. I don't see too many 75-year-old comedians.
True. I mean,
maybe 65.
Yeah, maybe.
But even then,
but it depends.
There's a cap on if you're not famous.
I don't know. If you're not famous,
when you're famous, it could be 100 years old. They'll still come see you. Because George Carlin's last show, he still sold it out.
Correct.
He was fucking 80.
Same with Pryor.
Yeah.
Because I mean,
it didn't matter. But if you're
Chris Rock's on that, he's on that level. And the Chappelles are on that level.
But if you're not a star, you don't have that much followers. You don't have 1 million followers or 500,000 followers. You gotta also go, how do I plan for this lifestyle to end? And what's the what's the rest of your fun gonna look like when you die? For comedy we can still do it to the day we die.
Yeah.
And I think
that's
building our own followers right now is more important than trying to find a gig.
I agree, but I also think what the luxury we've been afforded right now is that we're figuring out ways to, as Wu-Tang says, diversify our portfolio in the sense that it's not just us doing comedy. It's us putting on shows. It's us, finding different avenues to be able to pull in income. And I think that's what it boils down to. Because if people respect money, I don't think people are going to be mad that, oh, Ron does this or Ron has these all. And again, I'm not saying this is what you're doing, but like Ron has these all Filipino comedy cruises or whatever the fuck it is. You know what I mean?
Well, I think eventually that's something that every comic, if you keep doing it after 55, let's say, you're gonna have to get your own crowd.
Yeah, but I think that's what the goal should be.
Yeah.
So the same thing we were talking about earlier, where why is our in-person comedy different than our on-stage comedy, is because we know we don't have to keep. I don't have to keep showing you who I am. You already know who I am. So when your audience comes to see you, they already know, and they're here for you to be you.
Yeah.
Whereas when you're in a completely random club, it's like, who the fuck is this guy?
Yeah, yeah.
And
How do you keep loving it?
how do I keep loving it?
Yeah. Because most of the people we start with don't do it no more.
The reason I still love it is because I know this is my purpose. I know this is my actual talent, and this might sound, I don't know, I don't want to say like a cop out, but I no longer do it for other people. I do comedy because I still love it, and it preoccupies my brain.
Yeah.
It's
your own thing too.
I still think funny. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if we're in a conversation, like shit'll pop into my head, and sometimes I'll say it, and sometimes I know I can't say it, but I still feel funny. I still think funny.
Like when you leave your family at dinner, let's say you guys have dinner at 5, 6 or whatever because you're healthy, and you don't eat at 12 midnight like regular people. Do you go? Do you sometimes go, I got to do a set, I got to practice some new shit, I'm working on some stuff.
Sometimes they know.
And then so when you take off and do it, in your head, you put you put yourself in your own little world now.
Yes.
And now it's fun because you get to do your drive there, do the ritual of saying hi to whoever is there, and then you go in there, and then all the youngins are like, oh man, John Paul's doing a spot, and then you do something and they're like, wow, that was pretty cool and creative. And then you drive back and you listen to it a couple of times, and then you go back home and it's done. You're no longer thinking about it. You're no longer invested.
Yeah.
But you did what you had to do, working out.
Once I close the door behind me, I'm at home.
Yeah.
And that
it's like working out almost.
It's literally like that. And the beauty in my life that I have the luxury of is everyone who lives in my house knows what I do. They love what I do, and they accept what I do. So there's no judgment. It is why like my wife's not like, why is my husband going out to tell jokes? You know what I mean? Like It's not that. She knows.
And a lot of
she
people
knows
don't
that's what I
realize
do.
it's not
and
about.
She respects that, and they all respect it, and I appreciate that because that makes my journey so much easier.
And your family understands that.
Yes,
and
always
a lot of people don't understand that comedians don't always feel we have to make it.
Correct.
That is something.
It depends on what you consider making it.
But like, making it in the
my narrative of how I see making it is completely different.
Right.
Like
I'm talking about the generalized word of making it, where people go become stars. Like that's what a lot of comedians want.
They want to be famous, but
and this is a point where I'm at right now. If it happens, it happens, and it'd be good if it did. But if it doesn't, I don't give a shit.
But think about all this, because we have so much access because of social media and the internet. Think about all the people that are famous that stories end fucking horribly.
I've never heard too many good ones, man.
Like end fucking horribly. Like again, I'm an old Buddhist philosopher, Rastaman at heart.
Yeah.
And all I want to find is I just want peace, man.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's like we always talk about, like when we think about like martial arts movies, it's like, why do you still fight? So I don't have to fight.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And like in that Hero with Jet Li where you're like doing calligraphy on the and you're fighting in your mind with the fucking.
Because here's the thing: we have a lot of friends that don't do it anymore, and I honestly believe that
I feel sorry.
They want to make it.
I feel sorry sometimes.
Me too, because their goal was to make it, and when they didn't make it, they stopped.
When they thought what they thought making it was that they didn't do, then it's almost like, something broke inside them. Nothing's broken inside me,
right?
Yeah,
and for me too, it's more like, you know what, for the rest of my life, even if big things don't happen, you could always work on something that is tangible.
But
you
when
know?
so to bring it back to what you say, unless something big happens. But the crazy part is if you look at both of our lives,
Yeah.
we've both done TV, we've both done festivals, we've both done movies, we've both done TV, written for, performed for, around the world stages. Like, what more to making it do you, like, what more do we actually need?
No, you don't need any more than that.
Like, we've done
Right,
pretty
right.
much everything
Right.
that
But,
would be considered making it, with the exception of being in a restaurant and be like and being stopped every 3 minutes. But
Right.
who the fuck wants to be stopped every 3 minutes? Hey,
Right,
hey, how you doing?
100 fucking percent. I don't even like
This
it.
shit's cold.
I don't even like it when people stick around in the comic club when the show's done. I'm like, get out. I want to take a picture. Here's your picture. Get the fuck out of here. I don't like that either. And honestly, making it makes me sick.
Really?
The sound, the words of like that person's gonna make it. I hope we make it. I'm like, we put too much emphasis and too much power and control and giving our control away by saying that.
Yeah.
And I would rather not. Here's the thing. If it happens, I probably wouldn't give a shit anymore. It's kind of like this. By the time you figure out how to get a woman, you're too old and your dick don't work.
You're so dumb.
By the time you could be famous, you're 75 going, I don't give a fuck. I have 10 years left. I have 4 years left. Let me care about that part.
I'm literally about the journey and not the destination.
Me too.
Because I always figured that as long as you're heading somewhere, that you're always excited. Because if you get there and you're like, now what?
Yeah.
I mean,
Like, how fun was it when we drove around Hawaii buying mangoes on the street?
dude, when we went to Hawaii, I can't even begin to tell you the joy my soul felt.
Amazing.
Like,
Every time we pass some water, you jump out like a dolphin.
and that's what I wanted to do. I just wanted to get like ocean on me,
Yeah.
you know. And when we drove around, like the one day we had some of the sweetest mangoes, which used to be my dancer name, by the way. Ladies coming to
Mine
the
was
stage.
chili shrimp.
Sweet. We found that food truck stop,
garlic shrimp,
the shrimp. We went to Turtle Island and saw, or Turtle Beach or whatever. We saw actual turtles just like nesting and shit like that.
We smoked weed on the beach. That was dope.
And it was just one of those things where literally we got to be as insignificant as every human is in this universe. I felt less insignificant because I was completely content with just experiencing what the fuck we were experiencing, and to be able to, even though it's locked in here, I actually got to exchange that energy with one of my closest friends.
And you got to perform
And I got to
in a
perform comedy.
local Hawaiian crowd, not a tourist crowd.
Yeah.
Because that was a pure local crowd.
That was a pure local crowd.
And I remember the first show we did.
Yeah.
And you're like, what's with this accent they're having? I go, that's their pidgin.
Yeah. They
You
sound
know?
like Hawaiian
Ebra.
Jamaicans. It's hilarious.
Yeah. But you killed that first show too.
Oh, appreciate you.
Yeah. And then the second show, we had like 100 people. And that was so much fun.
The Blue Note.
We saw
man.
a bunch of people. We should do it again.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, I love that.
Like Hawaii.
Next time we
the
can get
food
more
was
people
great.
for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of
but,
fucking.
but these are the tiny little things that even huge, big comedians that are famous don't feel, because when you're that big, you won't do an open mic.
Correct.
You're that big, you won't go to a local scene and talk to the locals.
You don't get to touch. You don't get to feel.
No.
Like it's grounding for me, and I always want to feel grounded.
Yeah.
You know, and that's where I think the basis of my comedy anyway is feeling and making a connection. Whereas sometimes a lot of performers, I don't want to just say comedians, but a lot of big performers, it's not about connecting. It's just about jerking off.
Right.
Like, look at me.
Oh,
Thank
yeah.
you. Good night.
Oh yeah. And it's in for even like Trinity comics, when you go to, is there Trinidadian comedians that perform outside of Trinidad, like in other West Indian?
In West Indian communities?
Yeah.
Yes.
Like they'll go to Jamaica, they'll go to Guyana.
But it's a completely different scene.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And in order to do that, you have to be a pretty established, locally famous.
So does it work like this? So in the Philippines, let's say there's around 40 to 50 comedians.
Mm-hmm.
Only 2 of them can do international shows in English. The rest of them cannot even get out of there because their acts are in Filipino.
Mm-hmm.
And in order for you to be an international act, you have to do it in English. And even though they can speak English, their acts are not in English.
I feel you.
And the material they do is too Filipino to travel. So in Trinidad, would it be like that where most of the comedians talk really localized Trinidadian material?
Well,
Or
here's
basic enough and
here's
broad
the funny
enough to
thing. I don't know
travel
what
with?
it's like in the Philippines, but in Trinidad now, the new generation of comics grew up on
Right.
cable comedy.
Right, like
So
us.
like HBO, Showtime.
So they can travel with it.
Yeah. So
That's the new generation of Filipinos
so the
too.
new generation is trying to still be authentic. Not trying, they're being authentic, but also talking about things that might be a little more universal as opposed to, yeah, and tomatoes is $12 a pound. You could believe that? And like nobody in Atlanta is like, well, we don't buy tomatoes. I mean, like that kind of shit. You
You
know?
ever hear that guy Honest John?
The old white dude?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I remember doing a show with Honest John years ago and recently too.
He's still alive?
He's still alive. And I remember going, he kills in a black audience more than any older white man I've ever seen because he never stopped doing it.
Correct.
So when you go see him, as soon as he walks on, you're like, how is he going to make us, ah? And I'm like, I go, John, how do you, he goes, look, I've never stopped doing it. If I did, then I wouldn't be able to do it anymore. It'd take a long time, because his vernacular is also connected to the black community in America too.
Yes.
So in a weird way, he's learned to code switch.
Not only has he learned to code switch, I think what black crowds probably appreciate is the fact that he is not making fun of.
Right.
And that he
Right.
appreciates the culture and it's not a disrespect thing.
Right.
You know what I mean? So
Almost like a white comic, the Nubian show.
but it's almost like Owen, like
Right.
Gary Owens. You know what I mean? Which is the same thing.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
He almost only predominantly does black audiences.
Right.
You know what I mean? Because, he respects the culture and he respects the, and even Ralphie May was like that too.
Yeah.
Like Ralphie May was fucking hilarious, because he wasn't trying to make fun of it in a kind of way to belittle people. And I think that's why certain comedians can get away with doing things, why other comics would be like, well, how come you can say this and I can't say this? Is because your intention is completely fucking
I
different.
remember a lot of comedians were like, how does Russell get it? I remember in Australia and New Zealand and here in Canada, they're like, he's saying so many things that are so offensive and racist. To who though?
Correct.
You're saying he's offending these people, but those people are not offended or laughing. So are you saying they're too stupid to know they're being made fun of? Or do you feel that your perception could be wrong?
Yeah.
And sometimes I'd be like, how is he getting away with making fun of these people? First of all, it's his friends and it's him.
Yeah.
He's allowed to make fun of them.
It's literally him with thousands of his friends
Yeah.
in an arena.
And that's
literally.
how it is.
Literally. And it's
they
to the point
can't
where
understand that
No.
that's not being racist just because you're talking about, because it'd be racist to me if there was zero connection to what he was saying to the people he was
Correct.
making fun of.
And the crazy part is people show up to his shows to want to sit in front to get picked
Yeah.
on.
And you know what I hate too? Sometimes audience members that know us because of Russell
Yeah.
want us to do that too.
Yeah, I don't know.
They'll come to the show, they're like, hey, make fun of me. I go, I don't do that. Yeah. In fact, I hate doing that.
I don't mind.
I don't
I don't mind crowd. Like I love doing the crowd work, but it's got to be because I want to do it, not because you're like, dance, motherfucker.
So crowd work
I
to
don't wanna
me
do that
is
shit.
honestly no different from jujitsu, where jujitsu is used for me as a defense mechanism. If I can't, my punches don't work no more.
Really?
So
But you're so good at crowd work, dude.
jujitsu.
No, you're great at jujitsu, but
Well,
you're so good at crowd work too.
I mean, I really don't think about it at all. I use it when I'm like, you know what, I gotta switch this up, and I'll do cover because I feel the vibration not working.
Yeah.
So I use that as a last resort to choke a motherfucker, kind of thing. Because that's what jujitsu should be used for. It shouldn't be used to, hey, I'm gonna jump and go on my back, and I'm gonna beat you on my back, and you might pound the shit out of me. The last thing I want to do is put myself in a vulnerable position. But if I happen to be taken down and you happen to punch the shit out of me, I have nothing else to do. I will use jujitsu to save me or riff, which happened to me when I had to do a biker bar in Daytona Beach. Imagine a place like a bar and nobody was, everybody was heckling me. It was to a point where the whole crowd was like, we're gonna eat this guy out. And I looked at the leader and I had to destroy him to the point where I'm like, I don't care if I have to physically fight him if he gets offended. And all of a sudden, you could tell he was like, I made one crack in his teeth because I said they look like the box. Right? I go, your teeth look like the box that they have in America now. Right? Like the box in the vat. And he was like this. And all of a sudden, I was like, ah! And from night to day, it turned.
Yeah, it switches immediately.
Yeah. And so I'm like, oh. And then you throw your joke in, your new joke. And all of a sudden, they think you're making it all up. And all of a sudden, 10, 15, 20, 30 minutes back, boom, you're done. And the promoter's like, I thought you were going to get hung tonight.
Because the power dynamic shifts.
Yeah.
It's a shift in power. It's like you said, if you're getting like ground and pounded and you somehow get out of the submission hold and
right. Like here's an example. I really don't use it, but then when I remember when the guy, whoever the DJ was on Wednesday.
Oh, Sweetness.
Yeah, and he opened up. He introed me with it was whatever the
everyone was kung fu fighting.
And I go, stop this shit right now, right? See, I'm not thinking I'm riffing. I'm thinking I have to make this funny because it's so stupid that he made this, right? But that is riffing.
Yeah.
But that showed the audience right there and then. Don't play.
This motherfucker's got skills.
Yeah, because I'm not even doing a joke yet.
No. Dude, that was literally the first intro. You hadn't even said hello. It was literally the intro music, and you walked on. Everybody was, and then you were just like immediately like, put him in the fucking
joke. And in my head, I'm like, I'm not trying to riff. Yeah. I just want the crowd to know I'm alpha right now, and this is my show. And you're not. I'm gonna kill the dead. I'm gonna kill the fucking baby lions on stage. Yeah. You kill the lions. Yeah. From the last, and I'm the new king. If I don't think that way, the audience won't respect me at all. Yeah, and so within seconds, I have to show them that, hey, respect me because this show is gonna be great if you do.
Yeah.
If you don't, you're gonna miss the fuck out. Okay. And we have to think that way these days.
Yeah.
Because confidence is something that you feel right away when you see somebody.
It's an energy.
It's an energy. Yeah. Women, men, in a dance club, they go, how the fuck does that guy get all the girls? He's not even speaking. Look at the confidence they exude.
The term now is big dick energy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Totally, yeah.
That's what alpha energy is, big dick energy.
And you kind of have to show that as a comedian because you have chose a position of power to make people laugh.
Big joke energy, motherfucker.
Big joke. That's a great tour name.
Big joke energy.
Joke energy.
It's just like a giant mic. It's
hilarious. We put the whole like this. All
super thick. Big joke energy.
Dude.
So
I love that.
Here's what I say before we wrap up, and I really want to thank you for coming on because I've wanted to sit down and have this chat with you forever. You already know that. Every time you're in town, because you're never in town or in the country, I always want to have these conversations with you because anytime it's funny. I think about most of our conversations over the last few years, and most of our phone conversations or whatever it is, you're either in a different country or I'm in a different country, but yet it's almost like
and I always say this to you about how our lives are really. I would be you if I found a wife and got married, and you'd be me if you didn't.
Yeah,
because that's exactly what happened. What happened was, you go through life and you meet somebody, and it's either you get married and have kids or you fucking miss that boat. Yeah, it could happen later.
But it also worked for me because we also know a lot of people who got married and it just didn't work.
And it works for me.
I found the right person.
And I think it's when people go, "Hey, you're always traveling. How do you what makes you do that?" I go, honestly, I just chased the work, and that's all I did. Only thing I did was chase the work because I had no wife or kid to tell me to stop chasing the work. Yeah. And that's what it became,
So I would love you to come back on the stand-up sit down, but before we go. This is what I like to ask everybody, regardless of who they are, what they do. Your 3 favorite comedians, and it doesn't have to be all living. It could be past or present. Your top 3 comedians, favorite comedians, and why?
Top is Chris Rock.
Really?
Yeah. Reason being is because when I moved to New York and I was working at the Cellar, I heard a lot of stuff. You know, Chappelle's the GOAT, but really, he obviously is loved. But Chris Rock does stuff that most comics won't do. For example, his career was pretty much done back in the 90s.
Correct.
Kenny Robinson was opening for him. He left Living Color was shut down. He was kicked out of Saturday Night Live.
He was kicked out of Saturday Night Live, yeah?
And he was too edgy to do anything. A lot of the stuff that he was doing at that time, a lot of places didn't want to hear it. Martin Lawrence was the guy that was just destroying at a TV show, and there was a legendary bomb that Chris Rock did after Martin.
Mm-hmm. Oh, on Def Jam.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that.
That everybody's like,
I remember
oh,
that.
he's done.
I remember that.
And he was a really awkward guy. You could tell Chris Rock was just naturally awkward. And then he had one chance to come back after Big Ass Jokes. They gave him an hour special for HBO in 1996, and he opened it new. And
That's the one he opened up with the Marion Barry.
the Million Man March.
And the funny thing is, he said if that didn't work, he was done.
Crazy.
Done.
And he not only got booed, but he reversed the boot and they cheered, and it was the #1 HBO special ever watched till today.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, and so he got, because of the boo, and he switched the boo. And if you watch the timeline, so when it came out was, let's say, a month after it was taped, people in the Cellar were like doing the math and like, wait, Chris, did you just open new? He was like, yep. Even though your life was on the line.
And he was in Washington, D.C.
Yeah,
where
yeah.
Marion Barry was the mayor.
He goes, why? Because he is a true comic. He's a purist. And his last one, I'm with the writer, I can't remember the name, but I was with one of his writers in the Cellar. We watched the special together. All the comics were watching it. And at the end, he goes, yo, he just riffed that. He didn't write it. Because what was written was all the way before he talked about Will. And everybody knew that he had something prepared.
Wait, what?
He riffed that.
The one that he did live on Netflix?
Yeah.
Like the one that was like
Yes.
live?
Yeah, his writer goes, nobody heard or seen anything or him telling you about him going to say that. He just went off. It was unstructured. It was 100% emotional.
Which is crazy for Chris because
he doesn't do
everything is technical. He's
Yeah.
like the Brett the Hitman Hart,
And it was
the most
a
technical
live-
comedian, dude.
A live Netflix special.
Yeah.
And nobody has ever did that before. I think
it was the first one. He was the first one.
I think there was another comic
I don't
that
think so,
did
man.
it.
I think he was the first to ever do a live.
And he fucked up the CT scan joke,
Yes.
right? And he did not kill through it.
Yeah.
It wasn't a killer. Why? Because it wasn't edited enough.
Yeah.
And a special, something like that, you do it on 2 to 3 or 4 times and get the best.
And then you edit
It
all
looked
the pieces together.
It didn't look great,
Yeah.
but it was 100% pure.
Yeah.
And that's what real stand-up is.
Good for you.
And nobody would dare do that. So that's why Chris Rock's my #1. You cannot fuck with him because he doesn't give a fuck if he dies and be booed off. It's not about that. It's the art that wins.
He'd rather
all the
die
time.
on stage.
He'd rather die and lose his whole career than not be true to the art.
That's true samurai shit, dude.
That he's my samurai. I'm like, you can't fuck with Chris. Chris Big Dog Ronnie Chang. Ronnie Chang was blowing up. You know, he's doing well. And he was in the Cellar. And all of a sudden, Ronnie, you just see them back and forth. All of a sudden, Ronnie walks to us. He's like, yeah, he just fucking Big Dog me. I feel like shit. And he just left. I don't even know what they said. And I'm like, that's cool as shit.
Yeah.
You know, and so he came up with this term called evergreen. Because most comics have evergreen acts, which means you could do it the rain, snow, sunlight, but try doing things that only live
In the moment.
in the moment of that day.
But that's what most festivals and TV tapings want
Yeah.
comedians to do, is do shit that they can show 4 years from now.
And so that's how life was.
Yeah.
You know, so in Everybody Is Acting the Cellar, I always see the evergreen stuff and the stuff that they just for that day, it may not work again, but it's a muscle that they do every day, and that's a muscle that I incorporated. So when that guy did that song, I had to go, boom, no act, just deal with it quick, on the moment.
Lock it off and then move on.
Yeah.
So give me the other two.
The other two,
Again, could be past.
Patrice
O'Neal.
was
Damn.
one of my favorites because he was just
He's another
fearless.
raw dude.
He was a fearless, and as much as everybody's gonna hate me for saying this, Louis C.K., he was fearless with his dick. No, he was fearless coming on women's hands. No, he was so fucking fearless, dude.
Yeah.
Like he made fun. He was like the first to go, "My kids are assholes."
Yeah.
You know, and I remember going, "Can you say that?" Like, you know, just
Yeah.
like, and everybody's like, finally, someone called their kids assholes. All of our kids are assholes, and nobody wanted to admit it. You know, so he was, to me, he's even bigger, more like twice. I love him 10 times more than Bill Burr. Yeah, it's just too. To me, it's as real as honest as Patrice.
I feel you.
Yeah, they were the same person.
And a great writer, too.
Yeah.
He actually wrote for Chris Rock.
Yeah, Eddie Murphy, obviously, the performance level has never been duplicated.
Correct.
Like, that guy, the camera loved that guy's face so much that, honestly, him and Shirley Temple had that same thing where you just looked at it and you stared. He had the dimples, the face. You're like, why can I just stop looking at Eddie Murphy's no eyebrows? Like, he had that face, you cannot stop laughing.
Yeah.
I couldn't stop laughing when looking at him. That's something like Greg Morton had, where I couldn't stop laughing looking at his face. That's something physical, emotional, spiritual, the energy, the soul is just funny. Eddie Murphy is so good. I was so high last night talking to Norm. I'm like, there's no way. I go like, I want to be the next Eddie Murphy. Okay, that's like saying I want to be the next Michael Jackson. Everything you touch has to be gold, 90%.
Everything.
So when everybody's talking about these viral videos that people are doing these days, they do one or two. Okay, Michael Jackson had to do Jackson 5, Ben, the Jacksons. Then he had to do his solo thing, No, Don't Stop Till You Get Enough. Then he did Billie Jean, Thriller, and fucking Beat It. Like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
And we're not even done.
And we're not even, those are just the songs. We're not even talking about the videos.
Videos.
Yeah.
What he was the very first viral person that everything he touched, and Eddie Murphy was the same exact person when it came to comedy.
Fun fact about Michael Jackson, him and the U.S. presidents were the only people that ever interrupted regular TV. So whenever his videos were premiere, like Thriller and Beat It and Bad and all that shit, it would preempt live TV, show the video, and go back to fucking whatever you were watching.
You know, you look at that level of talent, and I'm like, hey, if you get somewhere and very famous doing one thing, you're lucky. But these motherfuckers did 20 things.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I had one viral video. That's nothing.
Yeah.
You know, these motherfuckers were real. That's God. That's a different level of godliness.
Yeah.
You know, it's just too much. It's kind of like Bolt.
It's divine intervention, dude.
Yeah, it's like fucking Jordan, Tyson. You're just like, how is Tyson 12 years old and 190 pounds beating up grown-ass men because Kevin Rooney would lie and say he was 15?
Yeah.
Like, these are just naturally, you know, Mike Tyson said that it was really cool. They're like, I can't believe you met Customato. How did that happen? He's like, no. He summoned me. That's the only way you can explain it. Because he was the most masterful boxing coach for the style that was made for Mike Tyson.
True.
That shit is one in a million. It's like finding a pin in a haystack.
Yeah.
Needle in a haystack.
Needle haystack.
It's so impossible to find that combination, the Eddie Murphy combination.
Yeah.
I watched Seinfeld, and it wasn't Seinfeld to me that was as great as George Costanza and Elaine and Kramer. Them together, that was too powerful. Where they all tried to do sitcoms on their own. Besides Elaine, they all failed.
Yeah.
You know, but Jason Alexander, the level when I watch how he does his lines, not that I suck, but I remember watching one episode going, there's no way I could have performed that. It was too good. Because we as comedians we understand timing and rhythm, and I'm like, this guy was like a song. It was like Jerry. I'm like the rhythm, and I found out he was a Broadway actor. I'm like, no wonder. You can only be that tight as a performer if you're a Broadway actor. Jerry was not a Broadway actor, and that's why he had funny moments.
Yeah.
But he could never carry that show like
Yeah.
George can,
Yeah.
and Elaine and Richard, or what's his name, Kramer. So I'm like, hey, we're talented in some things, but I gotta. When I see real talent, Eddie Murphy was like in his interview recently, going, when you meet real talented people, they speak different than the average person. They smell different, and they're just not normal. It's like if you ever met, he was talking when he met Paul McCartney and Stevie Wonder. Already he was like, I was around greatness. You just know. And you know what? Throughout my life, we've met incredible people. Like, wow, you're a great human being. You're like, you meet too many of them.
Yeah.
You know, whether they're like crazy killers from the fucking mob guys, porn stars, or real activists, and you just meet so many different type of people, and you see greatness. Like, you're like, whoa, that's great. Like, you know, I had a friend that met one of their idols, and you know, you meet your idols, you may not like it.
Yeah, they always tell you not to meet your heroes.
Yeah, and the reason why is because they're great, and you just don't want them to hurt you.
Yeah.
But they always do.
Yeah.
Because they're great.
Because they can't live up to the fantasy that you built in your head.
Every single person I probably met that I kind of liked, I didn't want to talk too long.
But here's what I want to say. You live up to the fantasy that I have in my head. You're still one of my favorite people of all time.
Come on.
I fucking love you to death. And this is my boy, Ron Josol. Thank you. You got to come back and do stand-up, sit down. Yeah. And ladies and gentlemen, my brother, Ron Josol.
Let's eat.
And here's what I always say at the end of the show. You already know. Spread love, walk good, practice happy. See you next time. Stand up, sit down.